So, good day everyone. My name is Tana Andrea Di Macabante and I am the last reporter of this group, and we are down to the last two topics of this chapter entitled Utility. So, throughout the discussion, we have discussed what is utility and how to conduct utility analysis, and we also discussed about the practical considerations that we need to consider in conducting a utility analysis. So one of the practical considerations that was stated is the CAT score in use. So as defined and discussed, CAT score is what allows us to classify or categorize those people who are qualified and those who are not qualified based on the result of a test. So with the CAT score, we are able to determine who are those qualified, and in terms of employment, knowing those who are qualified will help us to hire those applicants who are best for the job or best for the position. So with that being said, knowing how to set the CAT score is really important. So now a question may arise on how to set the CAT scores. So the previous reporters have already discussed two of the considered more popular methods in setting the CAT scores. So for me, I am tasked to report about the IRT-based methods and other methods in setting CAT scores. So for our topic outline, we will be discussing the IRT-based methods, and that includes the item mapping method and the bookmark method, and the other methods which include the method of predictive yield and discriminant analysis. So for our intended learning outcome at the end of the discussion, we will be able to discuss the IRT-based methods and other methods in setting CAT scores. So the other methods that were discussed by the previous reporters, which are the Angoff method and the known groups method, are based on the classical test score theory. So in this theory, CAT scores are set based on the test taker's performance across all the items on the test, meaning the test is seen as a whole. So for a test taker to be considered passed, or for before we can conclude that a test taker has passed the test, there is a need to have correct answers on that test, or some portion of that test must be scored correct, or if ever the employer or the one that is studying is using trait or attributes as basis for employment or for choosing, there is a need that that test taker must possess that attribute or trait. That is how it works in the classical test score theory. However, in the IRT framework, or the item response theory framework, things can be different, since in IRT framework, each item is associated with a particular level of difficulty. So if in classical test score theory, the focus is on the test as a whole, in IRT framework, the focus is on each item. So each item has difficult or different level of difficulty. So for a test taker to be called passed or to be considered passed, the test taker must answer items that are deemed or that are considered to to be above some minimum level of difficulty. So it is up to the experts and the people who are studying or conducting the test to determine what is the cut score. So what are the examples of the IRT-based methods? We have first the item mapping method. So this is usually used in setting cut scores for licensing examinations. So how does this work? It involves the arrangement of items in a histogram, with each column in the histogram containing items deemed to be of equivalent value. So the items are mapped in a histogram, and those that have the same value or level of difficulty are categorized accordingly. So the judges who are to judge whether or not the item is or can be set as the cut scores should have idea on the competence or the needed competence that a test taker should have for the judges to know whether or not that item is the cut score. Kumbaga, dapat alam ng judge kung ano ba yung kailangan para ano yung kailangan i-possess ng isang test taker para makonsider na pasado siya, at ano ba yung kailangan para makonsider na competent yung isang test taker. So, upon knowing or after knowing, syempre may idea na yung judge, magpe-present or there is a presentation of items from that column. Diba na-categorize na siya? So, the judge will be presented items, and based doon sa mga items na na-present, doon magbe-base or doon magja-judge, kumbaga, if that item can be answered by a minimally competent licensed individual about half the time. If ever na masasagot or hindi ng isang competent licensed individual yung item na yon, then that item or that difficulty level is set as the cut score. That item is considered to be the cut score. Kumbaga, yun yung magka-categorize kung or magdi-differentiate kung competent ba or tama ba na ipasa yung isang test taker based doon sa item na yon. And if ever na hindi man or hindi yun kino-consider na cut score, the process continues until the appropriate difficulty level has been selected. So, sa process na ito, parang continuous siya. It will involve several rounds of judgment. Tapos, sa rounds na yon, magbibigay ng mga feedback yung mga experts. Kumbaga, may mga comparison on the selection. Kumbaga, if ever na-select ito ng isang judge and ito naman, kumbaga, bibigay sila ng feedback if okay or not, or if it is right to be considered the cut score. So, another one which is considered to be the opposite of the item mapping method is the bookmark method. So, sa bookmark method naman, this is usually used in academic applications. So, paano naman ito ginagawa? So, a bookmark is placed between two pages or two items that is believed to separate test takers who have acquired the minimal knowledge, skills, and or abilities from those who have not. So, doon sa item mapping method, di ba histogram yung ginamit? Dito naman sa bookmark method is a bookmark. So, those items that are used in the test is written on a book. Ganun. Each page may isang item, ganon. Tapos, yung items naman are arranged from list, or yung arrangement ng items is ascending order of difficulty. So, kumbaga yung level of difficulty is tumataas, ganon. So, gaya doon sa item mapping method, di ba, bago mag-judge yung isang judge na yun na yung cut score, syempre kailangan ng mga judge malaman kung ano ba yung kailangan na competence, ano yung kailangan na ability, knowledge, or skills ng ano yung kailangan ma-possess ng isang test taker para ma-consider na pasado siya, ganon. For them to be able to select the correct item as the cut score. So, ayun, na-place na yung items in an ascending order. The judge or the expert will now put the bookmark between the two pages na magdi-differentiate or magka-categorize doon sa items na magdi-differentiate sa mga competent at hindi competent. Kumbaga, di ba may hinahanap na certain knowledge, skills, and abilities. If pinopossess yun ng isang tao, and if not, yung question na yun ang parang mag-judge if competent or not. So, the bookmark serves as the cut score. So, like the item mapping method naman, it may also involve several rounds para or bago makapag-decide na yun na ang cut score. So, ayun din, pwede rin magbigay ng mga feedback kung tama ba yung napili na item. So, in the end, the level of difficulty to use as the cut score is decided upon by the test developers. So, yun yung sa IRT-based methods. We have the item mapping method and the bookmark method. So, actually, there are a lot of methods that are used in setting cut scores. Pero, di ba, as stated sa introduction, those that were discussed are the more popular methods. But then, we are still going to discuss other methods used in setting cut scores. So, we have the other methods. First is the method of predictive yield. So, the method of predictive yield is an example of a norm reference method for setting cut scores. So, this is presented by R.L. Thorndike in 1949 in his book, Personal Psychology. So, this method takes into account the number of positions to be filled, projections about the likelihood of acceptance, and the distribution of applicant scores. Another method is the discriminant analysis or the discriminant function analysis. So this is used to understand and determine the relationship between identified variables and two naturally occurring groups. So in this, we have an example. So for the identified variables, we can have the scores on a battery of tests. And for the two naturally occurring groups, those are the persons judged to be successful at a job and persons judged unsuccessful at a job. So, discriminant analysis will help us if there is a relationship between the score on a test and how we can judge a person based on that score on a test, or how it helps us to categorize those people who can be successful at a job and who can be unsuccessful in a job based on the scores on that test. Still, it's on the categorization, and accordingly, discriminant analysis is an example of those that use statistical techniques. So that would be all for my report. Here are my references. Thank you.